Welcome to the NewsBusters Podcast with your host, Executive Editor of NewsBusters, Tim Graham.
Hello and welcome as America gears up to kick off the summer with a long Memorial Day weekend. It's not a great time to ponder how the Department of Homeland Security can be accused of trying to underline a Democrat narrative. You know, the dangerous nexus of domestic terrorism in America can start where? At suits and khaki headquarters of the Republican National Committee or the Heritage Foundation, or at media outlets like Breitbart or the Christian Broadcasting Network. This actually happened. This was an astonishing finding, months in the making, here inside the Free Speech America huddle here at the Media Research Center. Joining us to discuss their shocking expose is Dan Schneider, the chief of the Free Speech Corps there.
The chief, the
Jefe.
Wow, El Jefe.
I usually call Bozell El Jefe because he lived in Spain, but...
Maybe I'm El Jefonito.
So here we are, the Biden administration, which I believe they were all about restoring the soul of America. That's not what this looks like.
I think when Biden says it, he means America spelled with a K.
Or 3 Ks.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So you obtained documents through the Freedom of Information Act showing that the Department of Homeland Security is using a terrorism fighting project to fund a bunch of left-wing academics who are trying to underline that somehow you can draw a straight line from the RNC or Heritage to Nazis.
Right.
I mean...
Right, well, look, this is out of the Department of Homeland Security's Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program. These are U.S. taxpayer dollars that are supposed to be used to stop terrorists from coming across our borders and to stop, organized like gang violence, killing us all. But instead of using those funds, our own tax dollars, to protect us from evil, those taxpayer dollars are being used against us, and in really nefarious ways. It's not simply, calling us dirty names.
Yeah.
But there's actually the government should never be calling any legitimate, decent American organization a dirty name. But the actual training has gone on how to undermine and subvert organizations, and these are the sort of most mainstream, respected conservative organizations in the country.
And this is the problem. I mean, you would expect, we always see CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NPR making connections between Trump world and white supremacy, or comparing Trump to the worst dictators. But this is something different. I mean, this is, as you suggest, is taking Homeland Security dollars and I guess whenever you give grants to left-wing professors, what do you think you're going to get? But the joy of this, of what you found, sort of the central image here, is what they called the pyramid of far-right radicalization. And here at the bottom, they have these logos. It's the RNC, it's CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network, it's the NRA, it's Fox News, it's the Heritage Foundation, and JBS, is that supposed to be the John Birch Society?
Yeah, those are the Birchers.
And then one level up, then you have the Breitbart, you have Turning Point, you have PragerU.
Prager University.
Yeah.
The evil, maniacal Dennis Prager.
Right next to InfoWars. Or not right next to, but on the same level. And it's this sort of thing where they're clearly suggesting that that Heritage and Fox and the Republican Party lead straight to...
They're not suggesting.
Yeah.
This is their belief in what they preach. And it's not even that they lead to, it's that they are. They are part of the radical, evil right that must be stopped. It's just, that the Christian Broadcasting Network is not quite as bad as the militant Nazis, but they're all within the same frame, according to the Department of Homeland Security's grant programs.
So the one that you dug up here was the University of Dayton in Ohio.
Well, this is the first one we've reported on.
Right. To draw on the expertise of the University of Dayton faculty to fight, quote, domestic violence, extremism, and hate movements, unquote. And this is exactly what happens, and that is when liberals think of extremism and hate movements, they think of just everyday Republicans.
Well, let me refer back to this pyramid, because you referred to movements, and there are two movements that are listed here as well. The Blue Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. So if you're pro-cop, you're evil. And the other movement, of course, is MAGA. So, yeah, what percentage of Americans fall within at least one of these one of these organizations and movements? If you add up the people who watch Christian Broadcasting Network or call themselves Republicans, or
simply voted for Trump in 2020,
or voted for Trump, this probably says that 2/3 of America is evil.
Yeah, I mean it is stunning, and I suppose this is what somebody might have thought when they proposed having a Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. Is that some people, I'm sure on the libertarian right, on the suspicious left, they were sort of like, this is going to end up with the government basically doing some sort of domestic surveillance of people's speech.
Yeah.
Now, I know that a couple of weeks ago, this group called the Foundation for Freedom Online did another thing, same program. Basically, they were saying, they were training people to watch out for pro-life moms. Watch out for white teenage soccer players. They might be radicalized. So this is the kind of thing where it's like, I remember the left was always so upset that you would suspect, how dare you send a spy inside a mosque after 9/11?
Uh-huh.
I mean, now they're basically like, white Christian moms, they're the next wave of domestic terrorism. And nobody seemingly objects.
Well, I don't want to deter you from going down this path, but I want to make sure you know there's a parallel path here. As this money is being used to go after pro-life moms, the money is not being used to stop terrorists at the border. So I did the smart thing. I went on to the Department of Homeland Security website, and I looked to see how many terrorists or suspected terrorists were apprehended at the border. And during the 4 years of the Trump administration, on average, less than 3 terrorists were apprehended at the border. Even though Trump was on lockdown, trying to stop as much, terrorists knew the border is not the way to get into the United States. In the first half of this fiscal year alone, already 98 terrorists and suspected terrorists have been apprehended at the border. Basically, the porous Biden border has announced to the terrorists all over the world, we're welcome for business. Come on in. and who knows what the actual percentage increase, 500%, 1,000% of terrorists and suspected terrorists trying to come into our country.
But if you were PBS, you'd say, look, the Biden administration is 30 times as effective at getting terrorists at the border.
You mean the future Nobel-winning President Biden?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we see in our public broadcasting system. Tell me about how this all started. You obviously had to make a decision that you were going to say, we're going to go into making Freedom of Information Act requests. I can say over at the NewsBusters media analysis side, we're always too busy watching crazy news. I've never filed a FOIA request. And is this what you thought you might find?
Yeah, well, how did this really start? Well, the president and founder of the Media Research Center is Brent Bozell. And a few of us sat down with Brent before the beginning of this fiscal year, calendar year for MRC, and he instructed us, I want to pursue new ways, effective ways. We want to have measurable change, come up with ideas. And we collaborated and came up with, this is one of our initiatives. Let's do FOIA requests to find out how the media is collaborating with the Biden administration. And that's been our primary focus in this. We have uncovered quite a few sort of stunning revelations that were before we go public with them, we're developing them more. This is the first one we've gone public with. And because, interestingly enough, this targeted violence and terrorism prevention program heavily focuses on media literacy. It's using the media and other avenues to try to influence how the public thinks of terrorists, like Prager University and the Heritage Foundation, and of course, the dreaded Fox News.
You always have to beware when they start talking about media literacy. It's usually involved the so-called independent fact checkers going after the misinformation, and all of these things sort of have the same feeling, which is when conservatives start to talk, everything goes wrong. And somehow they think they never go over the top. You went to this, you were talking about a seminar the University of Dayton was held, and basically they sent the video to DHS, and one of the, a member of the faculty at Rutgers compared the Trump administration to the Khmer Rouge, which we should remind people in the late 70s. The Khmer Rouge killed an estimated 2 million of their fellow citizens in Cambodia. And then another speaker compared Ron DeSantis proposing a volunteer civilian military force to assist the National Guard in emergencies such as hurricanes to the Holocaust.
Yes. Yes. So this was the first conference that the University of Dayton put on, and and it included DHS employees, staff. In this conference, the materials from this conference were then the basis of the application for funding. So DHS had all of these materials, including this pyramid and other really crazy things. And DHS said, wow, we like this. We're going to give you $352,000. Do more of it.
And overall, you said it's almost $40 million in grants.
So far.
Yeah, which is a lot of money, although obviously the department itself has a lot of money. But in this particular case, you're throwing millions of dollars at academics to warn people of the terrorist potential of mainstream conservative groups.
Yeah. Now, I keep on going back to this because there are two sides to this coin. One is that these dollars are being used against traditional American groups. And two, these dollars are not being used for the intended purpose. Mm-hmm. If they were stopping terrorists at the border and working on gang violence, we'd all think, all right, well, that's not a bad job for the federal government to be involved in. We like to be kept safe from terrorists. But the dollars aren't being used that way.
It is interesting now. I'm just sitting here pondering it, and that is that one of the things that President Trump really didn't get much credit for was kind of ending Islamic State as a terrorist threat here. I mean, we are 2 years into the Biden administration. We wouldn't say we've had an Islamic terror attack, and I think that's true for most of the Trump years as well, which I guess makes it easier for them to somehow make this theory now that all of the terrorism is somehow conservatives, usually white conservatives, often white Christian conservatives, but it's the same thing where they're not willing to say, well, we're not going to define it as domestic terrorism when you throw a Molotov cocktail in a pro-life group's office.
Well, look, let's address the false premise first. I just can't tell you how much I despise when I hear the media and others refer to Nazis and neo-Nazis as far right.
Right.
On a political spectrum, the farther right you go, the less government intervention and control you want. The farther left you go, the more government control